Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Thanks for joining us. Hang on just a second, would you please? I just started, just before we started, the second monitor died on me. So I'm going to have some extra challenges, but I've still got some echo going on. I'll figure it out in a second. I'll be okay. You'll be okay. We'll figure it out. The local time is 1:51. Stop the echo, please. 1:51. And we will begin our program called Docking Siletzia at the top of the hour. That's about 9 minutes from now. So you can scrub ahead 9 minutes if you like. I can't even see the live chat yet, but I'll figure that out. So give me just a couple of minutes, would you? Wow. It's been a while since I've had this kind of circus. Shut up. Okay, that's muted. I got to get rid of this other sound. Oh, on this? Yeah, on this. Okay. So I think I'm really going to make sure that we're 5 by 5 with Lappy, the microphone, and everything. I've got, what do I have? I've got the laptop muted, and I have the YouTube stream muted as well. And I got to look way down here to see the live chat. So if you just joined us, I lost power or something. I don't know what happened with my big monitor right behind Big Smooth, but it's black. So I'm improvising right off the bat. So I'm especially grateful to see the 5 by 5. Let's go ahead and say hi to some folks, and then I'll get my heart rate down here just a second. Can he slow this chat down? Yeah, I can, even though it's a tiny little window. Hi, Thomas, and Dareth, and Mr. Tom, and Eric. North Carolina checking in. Richland, Washington. Oregon. Sunnyvale, California. Greg's in East Tennessee. Honey Greg. No more echo. Thank you for that report as well. Garrett, the Dutch Night Owl from the Netherlands. Norley's in Quito, Ecuador. I just watched her latest video this morning. Very excited. Jennifer Lupin, hello. It's sunny in Western Washington. Yeah, it's sunny here too, but we got about 30-mile-an-hour wind. And the temperatures, well, I don't know. Let's test the iPad, make sure that's functional. Spladam. Oh, Christ, I can't. Sorry, Patrick. Oh, you kidding me? Wait now. Wait now. I can't switch to the iPad? Okay, I got to think for a second. Why can't I switch to the iPad? Oh, now I can. Oh, that window has to be open. Ah. Oh, boy. Okay. So it's 39 degrees, but it's windy. Okay, I'm getting back. I don't know if I'm switching much to the iPad today. I'm getting gun shy right off the bat. And now I can't see your live chat. Oh my God. Oh, and I gotta send an email. Hang on. Boy. You're gonna have to be patient today. I'm glad you're with us. Man, oh man. God. Okay. Let's say hi to some more folks. We have about 5 minutes, and yeah, I'm going to be you can finish that sentence. Okay. Edmonds, Washington. And David is from Squaw Valley, Squaw Creek. Hold on. Can't find it, sorry. Oscar's in San Diego. Stan David has a foot of snow coming to Wisconsin. Northwoods 3D, hello from snowy, chilly Unity, Wisconsin. Go Badgers. Yeah, basketball team's looking good. I'm surprised. Oscar, take a deep breath, let it out slowly. Yeah, man, I don't get quite as frazzled as I used to back in the backyard because I rely on the internet so strongly here. So, of course, I've jinxed that too. But, yeah, I'm flying kind of blind today. But, yeah, Nat has really been super helpful, including kind of my level of comfort here. Daryl from Kansas. Okay, now I got to make sure that our guest is going to get in here. Sent the email. There she is. Okay. Yeah, instead of a drinking game, I don't know. You can do what you want. Maybe there would be a guess. Have you guessed the guest? As we go through our episode. I honestly didn't think we were going to have a guest every time. I thought maybe the guest would be kind of a special thing once every 3 or 4 shows or something. But it seems to be working. And you guys seem to really be liking that part of this. So, yeah, unless I just strike out, I'm going to try to have a guest every time. People are guessing now. Okay, that's good. That's kind of fun. Andy from Vernalis, California. I'm scrolling back now. Norley, who's Norley? Itchyboots.com. Treat yourself. She is amazing in so many ways. Grandpa Carl from the Granger Clay Pits. Douglas is from Cleiss Park, Montana. Aurelio, hello from Valladolid, Spain. I tried, Aurelio, but I've seen you regularly here. It's nice to have you. Did I see a comment from you, Aurelio, saying something like you've never been in college or anything, and this is kind of a special treat for you? If that's the case, then I just love that part of this. That this is. You're half a world away and a language thing and have not been in school lately or whatever. It's just great. I love that. So I'm glad you're here and you keep coming back. Steve's from Milwaukee, Oregon. Got it. Kyle Roth from Reston, Virginia. John's from Menominee. And Rachel Forney, former Geology 351 student, says, let's talk about the Eocene in Arizona. Hello, Rachel, in grad school, Northern Arizona. Glad you're with us. Your seat is right there. It's right where the dead frickin' monitor is right now. But I hope things are going well for you. Yeah, you'll recognize some of this content today. Geologically speaking, a couple of thumbs up. Sharon for the Malaga slide. Hello, Sharon. Brian's in the UK. Jennifer from Boise. Harold, 83-year-old student here. That's great, Harold. We're all different, in this group. And that's part of what makes it fun. Okay. So thank you for being here. I guess I have to get a minute to get my head right, but it's really just to kind of stop thinking about the dead monitor and start thinking about what I'm talking about today. But it looks like we are functional and we have a hot mic and we're good. So, thank you. Give me 1 minute, would you please? Appreciate you joining us today. Hot mic. Oh boy. Okay, boy, what are you talking about today? Siletzia, huh? Okay. Whoo-wee. All right, you can do this. clinging to my notes here. Hello, my name is Nick Zentner. I teach at the University in Ellensburg, Washington. I am talking about Siletzia today, docking Siletzia, in fact. Ha, ha, ha. So we have much to discuss in this. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you're with us. I hope that you enjoy today's show. You've seen the outline already, and this is a transition show. You know, this isn't the first letter in the alphabet, right? We've been at this a while. We've done 6 shows, and this is show number 7, otherwise known as Eocene Session G. And we're going to look back briefly at the table setting episodes, as I'm calling them. We've been setting the table for the Eocene. And I think we are ready to do it now, and maybe you've been impatient, I don't know, maybe you haven't even tuned in till now. Like, I'm not going to watch this stuff that's before the Eocene, but there was a reason. There was a kind of a method to the madness, some of it planned and some of it unplanned, and I just kind of followed the inspiration of some of our guests who've been popping in. So that's where we will start. Instead of starting right with Siletzia and boom, we're off, I want to kind of do the greatest hits in just a few minutes, just to kind of bring some of those concepts back that will help us today. Once we do that, then I would like to, and this is my brainstorm this morning, which I really like. I didn't have it till about 8 o'clock this morning, but as I was writing it out, I really liked it. New ideas for me, maybe for you too. I want to compare and contrast between Wrangellia and Siletzia. In other words, we've already talked about Wrangellia. We're talking about Siletzia for the first time today. And before I forget, this is a Siletzia mini-series. The next 4 shows, maybe 5 shows, are going to be devoted to Siletzia. It's that big of a deal. So right up front, I need to tell you that there's a good chance once we get to the live question, that I assume we'll be able to do without a second monitor, that I might just go, hey, now, sorry, you got to wait on that. You got to wait on that, because I know who we're going to have this weekend. And I'm just going to put things off. We can't do everything related to Siletzia today. So this is the beginning of 4 or 5 episodes in our Siletzia mini-series, and I hope that you're willing to kind of play along with that. And I'll guide us to what we really want to do today. It's not killing time, for sure. And then once we're done comparing Wrangellia and Siletzia, and we're ready to talk about Siletzia, I want to get into the scientific paper that is available to you and has been for about 24 hours at my website. Do I dare go to the iPad? I guess I will. And this was a debate or a question for many, many years. Is Siletzia, or was Siletzia, built on the margin of North America's continent, or was it truly out there in the water? And Michael P. Eddy, from Purdue University, showed up 5 years ago-ish and put that to rest. And we already know the answer, but I want to show the work that Mike and colleagues did to solve that riddle. And I think it's helpful, and that's what that scientific paper is about. Okay, well, why not? Why not? You're here. In other words, why not? Can I actually get over to the iPad at least once without screwing everything up? Yeah, I think so. Are you still here? Again, I'm flying blind without my second monitor, so I really can't see your comments very well, but I'm going to try to how did I do that? Actually, I'm just going to, so patience, please. I keep asking for patience. So we're good, right? We can see the iPad here? Okay, taking my watch off. That's how out of sorts I am at the moment, but I'll find a groove. Okay, so we're to the iPad probably just once today. Ooh, 39 degrees. Okay, that's 5 minutes after 2. Sounds good. So my one and only time to the iPad. So first off, a programming note. Most of you know this, but here we are with session G and session H, session I, session J, and probably session K will all be related to Siletzia. And you'll notice, if you weren't with us the last couple of shows, I've added Sunday sessions. It's dark. My wife's going to be in Portland for the next 4 days. just me and Bijou the cat at home, so come on, let's just keep rolling here. Okay, so both Saturday and Sunday this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday next weekend at 9 a.m. Pacific. So plenty of Siletzia coming your way. He gets rid of that. It's third person Wednesday apparently. What's here? Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that you knew how to get to the website. I've done this the last few shows, but just in case you still are not sure how to get to these scientific papers that I have available for you. And by the way, you can just look at them on your computer. You can download them onto your computer. You can download them onto your computer and then print them out if you choose, and then mark them up as I do, being an older gentleman. So you have to type in nickzentner.com to get to a page that looks like this. And then we go to the upper right-hand corner of that, and we click on the word Eocene, that's us. And then I'm just continuing to add to this list of scientific papers. I went nutso last weekend with the Rocky Mountain Show. I don't know how many of those papers you've looked at. It's not required, obviously. But you'll notice that if I really scroll down here, I keep adding to the top of the list, and it's the Mike Eddy paper from 2017. This is my label, Siletzia Olympics. Let's go to that. So the paper looks like this, and my job here today, once we get through the first two acts, is to help you see the purpose or the role of this paper. Nobody's a bigger fan of Mike Eddy than I am. And no, he's not our guest today. So I'm not just blowing smoke here. But once we get past the abstract, this is really where we go. You see where we're going. We're going to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington today. And so I've got a bunch of chalkboard work ready to go for you to understand the difference between the green and the purple and the pink and whatever this color is. And I would, before I knew that Mike was had some color issues in his eyes. What do you call that? Colorblind, okay, yeah. I would tease Mike without knowing it. I'd call him bold color Mike Eddy. But he does have these bold colors, and it's partly because he can't see colors very well, I realize. So whatever, I feel bad about that. Okay, get rid of that, boy. No else. So yeah, you can go to each of these papers and get back into that whole Rocky Mountain thing. Okay, move it along. What are you doing? Since I'm at the iPad, let's just go here quickly. So Ellensburg is here, and 2-hour drive on Interstate 90 up and over Snoqualmie Pass. There's pretty snow happening up there right now, over to Seattle. This is mostly for folks from distant lands who are unfamiliar with Washington's geography. And Hurricane Ridge will feature into our discussion today. And Hurricane Ridge is due south of Port Angeles, Washington. And if we cross this body of water known as the Strait of Juan de Fuca, then we're in Canada. Honeymoon Bay sounds delightful. Where's Nanaimo? Where's Jerome's house? Our first guest. Yeah, there. So let's zoom into Jerome's backyard and see what he's having for supper tonight. JK, just kidding. All right. So we are going, sorry if you're getting dizzy, we are going to this beautiful Olympic Peninsula, and we will have mostly chalkboard work, and our guest might have a figure or two that will give you the geology of this more professionally. But again, the backup is you've got some beautiful geologic maps waiting for you at the 2017 paper from Mike Eddy. Okay, that's the end of the iPad for today, he says to himself. Hotkey back to the other camera and put that away. Now I want to make sure that we're still functioning. Looks like we are. Okay, let's do something real. All right? Actually, you know what? I don't see the live chat going right now. I'm pausing just for a second, and then we will go. Delay in the comments. We good? Okay. Thank you, Lethally. All right. Verbally, here are some things we've accomplished already. Just verbally. I'm not going to write it all out. I shared some goals with you for this series. the biggest goal is learning new things for me about the North Cascades. Looking at Eocene plutons, Eocene volcanic rocks, Eocene sedimentary basins, Eocene strike-slip faults, Eocene metamorphic core complexes, Eocene, that's the key word, tied to the North Cascades. Why? Because I'm part of this research team, a very small part. The team is made up of Michael Eddy from Purdue, Stacia Gordon from Nevada, Reno, and Bob Miller from San Jose State. You're going to meet all three of them before Christmas, before we quit for Christmas. You've already met Bob Miller. That's the guy that was talking about cutting things up with Paul Umhofer and pieces of paper and scissors and everything else and restoring those strike-slip faults. You remember that show? That was Bob. So we'll have Mike, Eddy, and Stacia Gordon in here before we break for Christmas. So that's my main goal, is to continue to push myself to learn new things, because I will continue to be filming them, interviewing them over the next few summers as they continue to do their work in the North Cascades. A second goal for this series is to do things with you. We have a community here, and I don't want to just do stuff I already know. That wouldn't be as fun for me. So the third goal is just to learn new things and then share it in real time. And much of this is stuff I've learned in the last 24 hours, let's say. And I get a big kick out of doing that. Okay. So session B was looking at the main events. And we had a main event 170 million years ago, 100 million years ago, and 50 million years ago. And then I quickly realized, after emailing a few geologists up in British Columbia, that the event that happened 170 million years ago, which was accreting the intermontane superterrane, was not fitting nicely into our narrative. It's a significant event for sure, but to help understand some of the details in the North Cascades, I don't think I see how digging deeply into the intermontane story is going to help us much. So I'm leaving that alone, mostly. That's Cache Creek and all that. But I have learned in the last few shows that the Cretaceous hit, the of the insular superterrane, which is Wrangellia, large igneous province, and friends, Alexander and a few other scraps. That's Basil Teacoff's guest spot. That is a major event happening 100 million years ago that's thickening the crust, creating a bunch of thrust faults and plutons inland, the Cretaceous fireworks, in other words. And we are going to continue to visit and revisit that event, that 100 million year old Wrangellia accretion, that slam, that docking of Wrangellia. That will be a theme throughout the rest of this series. Even though it's an Eocene series, even though we're finally to the Eocene, I do see already reasons that we'll want to go back in time. But more or less, we're starting today and continuing most of the rest of this series this winter to look at the Eocene. And the Siletzia docking is the star of the show. And the and then fireworks, that was all, I came up with that with Siletzia in mind, because I've already talked about, with Geology 351 students, many of these freak show things that are happening that we will continue to discuss inland. Okay, graphically I do want to do something from the table setting episode, and then we'll go to this. This will be quick, I think. This will be quick, boy. Yep. So what I want to do now is review what I just did. And it seems like I'm stalling. Am I afraid of the Eocene or something? I am not. I'm not. But I'm setting up now our discussion today. Can we see this? We can. So Alaska, Yukon territories, British Columbia, across the border into the U.S., the lower 48 states, Washington, Oregon, California. Here's Mexico. Okay, good. So just with a piece of chalk and I guess a little eraser, let me quickly draw for you another way to summarize the last few shows, ignoring Cache Creek in 170. So what did we have before 100 million years ago? We had some sort of sponge cake out in the water. Wrangellia, and we had it way down here straddling the equator. I don't know if I'm in love with the fact that Wrangellia, when we built the large igneous province portion of that, I don't know if I'm in love that that was sitting on top of the Galapagos hotspot. But the paleomagnetic data and some of this other work gets it down, at least for a time. Wrangellia gets it down, at least for a time, down in the equator. So it's a long way from where it ends up, is the point. And another thing I learned over the last few shows is that the simple concept of a nice circular sponge cake for Wrangellia is not a complete vision. Because do you remember? From Jerome Lessman and Basel and a few others, we realized that there was a much, much longer history to building the insular superterrane than just the large igneous province portion of Wrangellia, which was between 230 and 225 million years ago. You're like, slow down, I don't know any of this stuff. Hey, you haven't been watching. I'm just reviewing. So I'm getting away from a circular sponge cake from Wrangellia because on Basel's maps, and other maps to be honest, we have more of a string bean or a giant kielbasa out there. Because the history of Wrangellia, for instance, is a more linear volcanic arc situation out in the water, pre-230 million years ago. Then there's a short-lived sponge cake episode. Clearly, that insular is on some sort of mantle plume for a while, whether it's the Galapagos or not. And then do you remember there's more to the Wrangellia story after we create the sponge cake portion of the insular superterrane. That's what we're talking about now. We're talking about the insular superterrane. I may have misspoke and said intermontane. Sorry. We're talking about the insular right now, the insular superterrane. There's a younger volcanic arc story after we build those Carmoutzen basalts. So I'm not backing away from things, but I'm clarifying, at least for me and maybe for you, how we do this narrative. Do you remember where, talking about Wrangellia now, not Siletzia yet, right? Do you remember where Basil Tykov said we have to accrete, where we have to dock this huge insular kielbasa? Do you remember? There's a debate, but even if you are a fixist, you need this kielbasa to dock at the latitude of Idaho and points further south. And if this thing truly is a large kielbasa, then here it is, docking the insular superterrane no place further north than Idaho. And he used Idaho because much of this 100 million years ago isn't even there yet. So that's Basil working on this Idaho, western Idaho shear zone. So we hit the thing 100 million years ago. I'm just trying to get us back all together. What was our last show? Yeah. Basil and friends, like much of the Rocky Mountain uplift, starting as we dock this insular kielbasa. And whether a majority of it is docked at Mexico or whether a majority of it is docked in Idaho, we look for the Cretaceous fireworks inland of that. And then with Basil's model, we hit and then we run. So we sent this Wrangellia, I'm just focusing now on the Wrangellia portion of this, north, and where can we find today scraps of that former Wrangellia sponge cake? Correct. We find half of it on Vancouver Island. Those are the Carmoutzen basalts. I'm talking about Wrangellia now. And where's the other half? That's right, the Nikolai Formation up in southeast Alaska. So if we focus just on the sponge cake portion of Wrangellia, we dock, we slice. Remember the dock and slice? And to be honest, I'm not sure of the timing of this. Do we dock, shift north the whole thing, and then slice it? Do we dock, slice it in half, and then both of those halves of the sponge cake get sent north? I don't know. Does anybody? I'm going to leave that here. I'm going to use a slightly different colored chalk, but I don't think it's going to look much different to you. Now we finally get to Siletzia, electric company chalk. Now we're 50 million years ago. Are we going to be down at the equator making Siletzia? No. Today's content. Siletzia is a sponge cake only. Siletzia is simple in its creation compared to the long and varied history to make Wrangellia and the greater insular superterrane kielbasa. Siletzia, our topic today, is a relatively quick story, and it's being created not far offshore. I'm going to get to my differences between these two, but I'm already kind of spilling the beans. But as we discussed in the second show, in session B, we're going to dock this guy. This is Siletzia. We're going to dock Siletzia, different color. I don't know, does that look different to you? That's white chalk instead of yellow. Can't tell if it looks different to you or not. And then we're going to take half of the accreted Siletzia and send it north. This is called Yakutat. This is called Siletzia. So I don't know if anybody's done this, but we need a name. Like it's what's the name for the huge sponge cake? Like today, half of it is Siletzia down here in Washington and Oregon. Half of it is Yakutat up here in Alaska. What was it when it was a full sponge cake? Like Siletzitat? Yakutaletzia? I don't know. And that's here. I don't know, man. I mean, yeah. Thank you for coming over, but I think I'm going to be functional today, and we'll just find a different monitor. I was moving it when it was warm, maybe something.
Does this won't turn on?
Yeah, it's plugged in and everything. It's just dead.
It's dead.
It was alive, and then it's dead. Okay, so let's, without further ado, I think I have it on the back. Yep, I do. To me, this might be interesting to you. It was interesting to me. Appreciate you coming over, man. Okay, thank you. Not the Wonder Boy earning his money. Okay, I'll try to stay out of your way for just a second. I already kind of went through a little bit of this right just a second ago. But let me go through it quickly instead. To review, we dock Wrangellia. That's the one coming from the equator, at least 100 million years ago. We docked Siletzia 50 million years ago. We dock Wrangellia, Idaho, and points further south, depending on who you listen to. But remember, Basil says everybody, even the fixists, want to dock Wrangellia at the latitude of Idaho. And Siletzia, now this should be a question mark for you. It kind of is for me. We're going to hold off on this probably till this weekend. Did Siletzia dock in Washington and Oregon where we can find it today? Or did Siletzia dock further south like Northern California and Oregon? And then it somehow got moved up here. Let's leave that alone. But when we dock and slice, as I just tried to do that while Nat was coming in, we docked the Wrangellia sponge cake. Half is in British Columbia, most of Vancouver Island. Half of it is in southeast Alaska. Again, that's the Nikolai Formation. Something very, very similar. That's what got me interested for session B. The maps look almost identical as far as docking this large igneous province and then cutting it in half and having half in Alaska and half kind of down here in the Pacific Northwest. Kind of cool. Now, I don't know how important this is, but I think it is an interesting visual at least, or a thought experiment. Clearly, Wrangellia is done erupting, and it's cold. Everything's cold, even the sponge cake part, when it was all this hot steaming basalt that built off of the ocean floor. You remember from session B, I guess it was, that we have this thing. So we have a cold oceanic plateau when we accrete Wrangellia, but as we will see today with the Mike Eddy paper, this thing is still erupting. Siletzia is still erupting as it's being docked. And again, it was created not far offshore, for sure. It was an oceanic plateau. Siletzia was an oceanic plateau, but it's not nearly as cold and as far traveled as Wrangellia. Is that important to us? Equator, just offshore. Now the thing at the bottom, I hope you can see it, to me is the biggest kind of lights going off in my mind, and it's fresh, and I don't really know if it's real or not. But I wrote it down anyway. You remember the fireworks thought. We accrete or we dock a large igneous province, and then we have mayhem happening inland. That's the fireworks. Fireworks, right? I stressed with docking Wrangellia, the 100 million year old event, that we dock Wrangellia and then inland we should be looking for thrust faults and plutons invading from below. And there was a delay, like the docking was 100 million years ago, and then with the docking of Wrangellia between 180 million years ago, I'm still reviewing, we had massive amounts of thrust faulting, pluton injection, and overall a thickening of the crust. Now, Chris Mattinson upstairs and Basil Teacoff and others, Bob Miller, they're all talking about thickening of the crust. And I'm going to have to take their word for it that that's an important concept. In fact, I don't want to keep talking about Basil, but Basil specifically said, if you rewatch that thing, he said you can't really understand the Eocene until you understand the Cretaceous. Like, it's a thickening, and then everything falls apart. Everything starts to extend and thin. So this, to me, is a huge difference, at least the way I'm thinking about it right now. There are similarities with the docking of Siletzia. We're docking a large igneous province, for sure, that was built on a hotspot that Saturday. But is it true, I'm asking myself now, is it true that the main signature of the Eocene fireworks, not the Cretaceous fireworks, is it true that the main result of docking Siletzia is kind of the opposite of our Cretaceous fireworks? I think there's mostly normal faults inboard of Siletzia as it accretes. In other words, extending the crust. And plutons are invading from below, but in the middle of this area that is thinning as opposed to thickening. So this is an idea that I'm working on over the next few shows, maybe more than that. And I will be asking some of our guests to help us visualize this. But if it really is really different kinds of fireworks after docking Wrangellia versus docking Siletzia, why? I mean, I kind of know some of the differences, but I want to keep my mind open to all sorts of possibilities. And you're like, I don't think you're still talking about the North Cascades, are you? Yes, I am. All this stuff plugs into these two major stories. And there's other stories as well, but just philosophically, I think you've seen enough of what we're doing here to understand how I roll. What really gets me rolling, what really gets me turned on. And that is taking a bunch of local stuff and then plugging them into something bigger. Like, believe me, I've faked it on geology field trips, or when somebody comes out and shows me some thrust fault somewhere in the middle of whatever. It might be a beautiful day or whatever, and they're like, isn't this amazing? This hanging wall's over the foot wall, and there's like 3 meters of offset, and I'm like, yeah, I guess so. That's pretty cool. But I'm faking it. I'm faking excitement. And the excitement is only genuine. I'm just sharing how I approach this stuff. I can only really get excited if I take that thrust fault we're looking at in some little local area and plug it into something bigger. And I can go, oh my God, there's another thrust fault over there just the same way. Same offset, same age patterns, everything else, same folding. And now that I say that out loud, that's what I did with my master's thesis. You know, I was talking about Idaho State last time, 30 years ago. My first summer was mapping normal faults by myself all summer. Normal faults there was a set of normal faults on the northern edge of the Snake River Plain that were trending northwest. And there was another set of normal faults that cut the Heisey volcanic field that trended northeast. And I was mapping those two sets. And, you know, it was a big area. It was like 30 square miles, I think, that I covered on foot. And I created a nice map after that summer. I was plenty lonely. I remember that. And then I met with my advisor over the next, school year. And he says, well, we're going to just keep adding to this map, right? And I'm like, I don't know. We want to say something about the subsidence of the Snake River Plain and how they intersect the basin and range, right, Dave? And he's like, yeah. I said, how about I don't go out next summer and spend another frickin' 2.5 months by myself in the tent eating Pop-Tarts? And how about I go through the libraries before the internet and find all the geologic maps I can find over the last 100 years on both margins of the Snake River Plain. Let me look for those same kinds of faults and compile those so that we truly can say something regional. And that's what ended up happening with my thesis. Rogers is like, yeah, that sounds good. The dirty little secret is I had met this girl named Liz, and I didn't want to spend another summer out in the field. I discovered something else. Okay. What's next? I think we just burned through both acts, didn't we? The first two acts? Okay, well, let's go then to, we'll go to the last act, and then we will go to our guest. So where can we find this Siletzia basalt? Remember, half of it is here, and half of it is up in Alaska. That's Yakutat. Well, you'll see a much better map in the Mike Eddy paper, and maybe with our guest in a few minutes. But here's Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Here's the Olympic Peninsula, which is west of Seattle. Remember, we zoomed in with Google Earth and just a second ago and looked at Hurricane Ridge. Hurricane Ridge in Olympic National Park is composed of this Siletzia basalt. I haven't given you the ages yet of the basalt. That's coming in just a sec. And so we have this exposure at the surface of this Siletzia basalt. And it's potentially confusing because there are some local names. The crescent basalt, the Machosen basalt on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, the Siletz River basalt in Oregon. It's all now viewed as the Siletzia basalt. It is the oceanic plateau. You're like, well, that's weird. This thing that was built offshore, now it looks like this, it looks like a string bean. The answer is yes. And we'll talk about why in just a second. I've got a couple pre-drawn things on the chalkboard. In fact, here we go. Let's not screw around. Okay. Well, let's take it nice and slow here. Obviously, this chalkboard is the map of Washington that I use quite often, but I've just put a big line through here, so this is not the map. This is a cross-section. Can you follow that? So this is looking down from heaven between Seattle, Washington, and a little town called Pacific Beach. Okay? Looking down on a map, Seattle to Pacific Beach. And here's that same area in cross-section, or a side view. So here's a sunny day and a couple of hikers up on Mount Olympus. Okay? Seattle to Pacific Beach. What's underground? Seattle to Pacific Beach, how it looks from overhead. We good? Okay. So this white and this white and this white and this white and this white is all surface exposure of the Siletzia basalt. It's the Siletzia large igneous province, the oceanic plateau that was mostly underwater. I'll give you the dates right now. I need to, wait. I need to draw. Okay, this is going away. How much of that can you see? You can't see all that. Oh boy. Disjointed today, boy. All right, this will work. Once upon a time, there was an oceanic plateau called Siletzia that was built out in the Pacific Ocean, not far offshore of the Pacific Northwest. The dates that I have used for years and years is that Siletzia was built between 56 and 51 million years ago. That's a 5 million year span where we build this German chocolate cake underwater and we call it a chocolate sponge cake. Siletzia, a large igneous province that was clearly built on top of a mantle plume that Saturday. Okay, so I should put white here. Sorry. There's 12 times the volume of basalt in Siletzia compared to the total volume of the Columbia River basalts, the true German chocolate cake. I'll say that again. The German chocolate cake in eastern Washington is 1/12 the volume of the amount of basalt in this Siletzia. So it's a big boy. It's a big pile of basalt that's created off the ocean floor, offshore of the Pacific Northwest. So it's not out there anymore. Where can we find it today? Well, on the map, southern tip of Vancouver Island, Hurricane Ridge, other places in Olympic National Park. Can you see? Black Hills, Doty Hills, Willapa Hills. That's just in Washington. I'm Washington-centric, so we're not going down to Oregon. This is Washington-centric, obviously. But notice I also have some yellow dots. Hope you can see those. Yellow dots here and yellow dots here on both sides of our Siletzia basalt on the Olympic Peninsula. And in cross-section, here's our yellow dots as well. Okay? What are the yellow dots? It's not basalt. It's a variety of sedimentary rocks, but we're going to call them sandstones, okay? Just to be simple. So there's a bunch of sandstone here, and there's a bunch of sandstone here, deposited on either side. I'm not saying top and bottom, because that's the punchline of this story, but for now, either side. And sandstone here, and sandstone here. And just to finish the story, hopefully you can see this. It looks like you can. I'm going to draw more here in just a second. All of this material, which is the same as all of this material, including Mount Olympus, the high point in the Olympic Peninsula, is a bunch of shale and slate. It's a bunch of material that was originally deep sea sediment. It used to be mud on the Juan de Fuca plate. And as the Juan de Fuca plate started subducting, that mud was scraped off of the downgoing Juan de Fuca plate, got added onto the edge of the North American plate, and this is all a bunch of mud that's been shoved onto the edge of the North American plate since Siletzia was accreted. When did Siletzia accrete? We've just used the number 50 to this point. We're going to be a little bit more precise right now. So it's this sandstone, especially this sandstone here, that is the main focal point of this scientific paper by Mike Eddy in 2017. I'm almost done. We're about ready to go to our guest, who is not Mike Eddy. Somebody better than Mike Eddy. Did I just say that? This is called the Blue Mountain Unit. So I'm going to change this now and say BMU, the Blue Mountain Unit. And on this map, it's right here. This is the BMU, the Blue Mountain Unit. And you're like, come on, you're stalling. I thought you were going to talk about the docking of Siletzia. Now you're talking about a bunch of sandstone? That's the last part that I'm doing with you here. What did Mike Eddy and his team find when they sampled the Blue Mountain Unit, which is a sandstone that's up here in the mountains of the Olympic Peninsula? Okay, I'll do it quickly. It's not just normal sandstone. It's sandstone that's been interpreted as a turbidite. A turbidite. Turbidite. Do you know what that word means? A turbidite? I'll draw a picture. This is a cross section now. I'll get a boat in here. This is just a cartoon of a continent. Here's a beach. Here's a bunch of rivers bringing sand to the beach. And here's marine water offshore. Just generally now, any place in the world, okay? In the past or the present. What's a turbidite? It's the result. It's a bunch of, we'll just call it sand. It's a bunch of sand deposited when you have an underwater landslide through ocean water. So whatever the trigger, let's have a big landslide with a bunch of debris, a bunch of sand come barreling down this continental slope. It's sand that is continentally derived. It's coming from the continent, the sand is. But when it hurtles down this slope, and this it's an underwater landslide, it's a landslide happening with ocean water. So when it comes to rest, it's a unique deposit called a turbidite. So a turbidite is a special deposit that only forms when you have this underwater landslide called a turbidity current. And this Blue Mountain Unit for many, many years has been interpreted as a continentally derived turbidite. So for many years, until 2017, people weren't sure, geologists in other words, if we call them people, the geologists weren't sure if this Siletzia basalt was truly made out in the water or was maybe deposited on the edge of the continent, because they're saying, hey, look, man. Is that how geologists talk? I don't know. Hey, look, man. I'm setting up the results of Mike Eddy and team in 2017. Until 2017, geologists would debate about the origin of all this Siletzia basalt. We still have the continent here. You want to put the ocean in? We can do that. I'm not afraid. You remember the outline for today? The question for many decades was, is all of this basalt a pile of basalt that was deposited on the edge of the continent, like this? Or was it truly made out in the ocean floor itself? An oceanic plateau. And the anti-oceanic plateau people would say, well, obviously it's not an oceanic plateau, because this huge pile of basalt, this we can call it a German chocolate cake, I guess. This Siletzia basalt looks like it's sitting right on top of all this turbidite material. And the turbidite sand is clearly coming from North America. So how are you going to have something that's an oceanic plateau sitting on top of this presumably older Blue Mountain Unit? This is the Blue Mountain Unit. At least that was the thought. Say it one more time. Those that thought that the Siletzia basalt was not a large igneous province out in the water, but instead was a bunch of basalt that erupted at the coast of Washington and Oregon, used the Blue Mountain Unit as the reason. Because they say, we know the Blue Mountain Unit is a bunch of sand coming from North America, and so if you got a bunch of basalt sitting on top of that, it's got to be made right there. here's the Blue Mountain unit, as it looks today. It's clearly a continentally derived turbidite. And here's this Siletzia. So what does Mike Eddy do? He comes in on his white horse. And Ken Clark and Mike Polans. They go, well, let's sample that Blue Mountain unit. And while we're at it, let's look for other things that we can get absolute age dates on within the Siletzia basalt. Not the basalt itself, but we'll look for some high silica deposits and maybe some other stuff, that intrusions maybe that came up in. Let's get some good dates on those, and maybe we can solve this debate. I'm going to cut to the chase. It turns out that Mike Eddy, with his laughably precise, crazily precise dates in that 2017 paper, says, nope, this isn't good enough anymore. And I've been using those dates for a long time. I got to stop. Because the new Mike Eddy dates say this Siletzia basalt was not created between 56 and 51. With the new analytical techniques that Mike did at MIT in Boston, the Siletzia basalts were started depositing 53.18 plus or minus 0.017 million years ago. Now you're just showing off. Now you're just showing off on how precise you are. And the Siletzia basalt that was an oceanic plateau, that is the conclusion, stopped erupting 48.36 plus or minus 0.04. What is it, like 40,000 year error bar? That's crazy. And you're like, I don't see what the point is. How is that proving that the thing's a large igneous province and not a continentally derived pile of basalt? Anybody know the answer? I'm not going to wait. I'll just pause for just a second. Mike Eddy not only dated the basalt itself, but he dated the Blue Mountain unit. This is the big moment of today. And he said, look, I've sampled a bunch of sand out of the Blue Mountain unit. I've gotten detrital zircon dates. I've got a maximum depositional age, blah, 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 stuff we don't have to get into. But his conclusion and his data shows from the scientific paper that the Blue Mountain sandstone was deposited between 47.78 and 44.72, plus or minus crazy small stuff. That the Blue Mountain unit, which appears to be sitting below the Siletzia basalt, is actually younger. I'm going to repeat it twice more because this is the big moment of today. I hope you're still with me. I see some comments still going, so I guess you're all still here. This stuff, which appears to be sitting below Siletzia, and everybody agrees is sand coming from the continent, is not older than the basalt. It's younger. This sand was deposited between 47 and 44 million years ago. And yet the stuff that looks like it's sitting right on top of it was deposited between 53 and 48. And so how do you explain this? And the answer is, I'm out of colors. The answer is you put a huge thrust fault in called the Hurricane Ridge Thrust Fault, and you shove this younger sediment underneath Siletzia after it docks. And maybe our guest can help because I don't feel like I'm doing the best job here, but I'm going to try anyway. One last thing. Last cartoon, and we go to our guest. So what I'm trying to do is show you that our LIP, which is Siletzia and Yakutat together, by the way, is coming in and it gets docked to North America. generally I've used 51 to 49 million years ago as the docking date. Now we can revisit that. I'm not bright enough to think on the fly if Mike's new dates are going to change this at all for us. But the point is, this is basalt, and we're going to start to cram this basalt into the edge of North America, and that's the white stuff, right? After the thing docks, after Siletzia docks, that's when we have our turbidites coming down the continental slope. Siletzia is already docked. And we start depositing our Blue Mountain turbidites. Do you remember the dates? I erased them. What are they? 47 to 44. All out here, we've got all this continentally derived sand coming down the slope, post-docking of Siletzia. And what's the last step? The Wanda Fuca plate continues to subduct, takes some of this younger turbidite material, frickin' crams it into the hole, shoves it underneath Siletzia, and since that time, everything's been folded even more because all this stuff continues to come in. It's not easy to think of this visually. The geometry is not easy. Verbally, I'll give it to you one more and then I give up, or I stop. Maybe both. We build a sponge cake, we dock it, we have sand coming from North America being deposited down a graceful slope, and then much of that Blue Mountain turbidite material gets removed from the passive continental slope and shoved underneath the Siletzia basalt on this thing called the Blue Mountain, on this thing called the Hurricane Ridge thrust. That got a little more hairy than I thought it was going to be, but I think maybe we communicated there. Now, we need to go to an expert who has been out to this peninsula for the past 2 summers, and she has been collecting more and more of this sandstone, not only from the Blue Mountain unit, but from of these sedimentary units that are sitting on the other side of this Siletzia. And we'll try to learn what we can from her. This is Erin Donaghy, who is a PhD candidate under the tutelage of Mike Eddy. And I've gotten to know Erin, and many of you know Erin from videos that I've been shooting this past summer and even before that. Whew. So thank you for your patience, Erin. I said I'd pull you on about a half an hour after I started, and it's as we know, it's longer than that. So, headphones. So Erin has been sitting in the green room the whole time watching us. And we hope, since Nat took off again, that we will be able to communicate. Oh, now I have an echo. God damn it. Hang on. Sorry, Patrick. I'll try to bring that down, and I'll see if I can hear you, Erin. Boy. Hello, Erin.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Just barely. It's all me, I'm sure. So let me... Oh, gosh. So Erin, I just took my headphones off now, and I need to find the live chat to see how much of a train wreck this is. You can hear Erin 5x5. Well, that's good. Can you hear me? Erin, can you hear me right now?
I can hear you right now.
Shit, I can't hear you, though. Erin, can you hear me right now?
I can hear you right now.
See, now I have a delay on my end. You know what? Oh, gosh, how am I going to solve this? Nat, where are you? Oh. Let's start. If they can hear you, Erin, they can mercifully not hear me. Let's start. If they can hear you, Erin, could you please add a little bit to what I was trying to do here on the board, and I'll see if I can get myself functional here. But what have you been doing the last couple of summers with these sandstones?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a sedimentologist, and I'm mostly focused in studying active basins that form along active margins. And so the goal with studying the sedimentary sequences on the Olympic Peninsula is to put this basin, its formation, its evolution, into context of Siletzia's collision. Kind of like how you went through earlier in this lecture, that there were competing hypotheses with, what was the Blue Mountain unit? What did it represent? And was it really the base of Siletzia, or whatever the previous interpretation for what formed this massive sequence of basalts was, that you had this rifted forearc setting, and that the Blue Mountain would then be those continentally derived turbidites that were interfingering with the rift basalts. And so that model doesn't take into account for Siletzia's collision. So what I've been doing is going out and studying the sequences out there to put it into context of this new model of oceanic plateau collision. I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you. So.
Well, I'm here, but God damn,
I still can't hear you.
Echoes all over the place.
Oh, there you are. I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I can just faintly hear you, so I'm not going to be able to feed off of your comments, but maybe I'm sorry for this, first of all. So I don't think I can feed off your comments unless I kind of just disappear and then listen and then come back and try this clown show. But I had a thought this morning. You now know about these sediments above and below today's Siletzia, and are you hoping to find identical sediments up in Alaska that have the same story with the sediments that you found this summer, for instance?
Yeah, so the idea is that Siletzia and Yakutat formed as the same oceanic plateau, and it was a ridge-centered oceanic plateau. So they formed over a spreading ridge, and then also that the proto-hotspot for the Yellowstone hotspot formed nearby, so adjacent to this ridge-centered oceanic plateau. And that following collision, so Siletzia and Yakutat both accrete to Washington and British Columbia, then the Yakutat terrain at some point then has to be rifted off and translated northward to where it's currently subducting in southeastern Alaska. And so the main focus of looking at the sedimentary units is that this basin formed on top of both Yakutat and the Siletzia terrain. So the lowermost strata in the basin deposits should record the basin that formed while Yakutat and Siletzia were still together. And then we would expect to see some differences in provenance using zircon, geochronology, as well as depositional environments as soon as Yakutat rifted off and started its northward journey.
Okay, well, I'm just going to continue. I don't know what else to do. I mean, I think I'm now able to hear you without. No, fuck. There's still an echo. I'll try again. Sorry, Patrick, for this, and Erin. You were not involved with the Mike Eddy work that he published in 2017. So when you came to Purdue, did you know you'd be working on the Olympic Peninsula and continuing to this story? Or was this, basically did Mike said, this is the project you're going to work on? Or did you come and visit him because you knew of his paper?
Yeah, So Mike and I have a long history. I worked with Mike Eddy when I was a master's student at Northern Arizona University, and I worked with Paul Umhofer, and Mike was doing his PhD and working with Sam Bowring at MIT. And we were all in the same NSF funded project working with Bob Miller. And that was out in the North Cascades where I did the chumstick work. And so I knew Mike already, and I knew that I worked well with him. And so when I was looking at grad schools and was talking to Mike, and he had got this position at Purdue, then I was really excited because for my undergrad research, I also worked in Southern Alaska, and I worked with Jeff Trop, who's part of Ken Ridgway's larger research group. And so they study the southern margin of Alaska, and I studied Paleocene sedimentary for basin up there. That it was this really unique opportunity to work with both Ken Ridgway and Mike Eddy in this project that really interested me, that if we could submit a proposal and get it funded, that I could start to research questions that have always been of interest to me. So I got originally interested in terrain transport when I was an undergrad and working through my master's. And so it just seemed like the perfect opportunity with Mike, who's focused in Washington, Ken, who's an expert in Southern Alaska, that it just seemed too good to not jump at it. So.
Well, you've had great luck with advisors. You had Paul Umhofer at Northern Arizona as well, so you've had some of the best with the mentoring. Just a programming note. I think everybody's good except for me, and I got 3 browsers open, and they're all. I'm going to lose my mind, but I'm trying to be cool, Erin, but I don't think it's working. I'm sweating right now. But, you got Weeble Wobble there? Is that who I'm hearing?
Yep. She's sitting on my lap. So.
So how about? Did you want to? Oh, good. Did you have the ability to share your poster with us? That might, again, assuming that they can hear you okay. I think you would just, do you know how to do that? If you share a screen down below in this Melon app, and then I can bring that in, and I'm sure everybody would love to be able to hear your comments about some of that poster.
Okay.
I mean, why the hell would I want to do more fancy stuff if I can't even hear myself? But you're worth it.
Let me just. Okay.
Yeah, while Erin is playing with that, I can tell the viewers I miss my second monitor, so I've got a whole nother window that has disappeared, and I don't know how to find it again on this MacBook Pro. I got another MacBook Pro on the way, but it'll be weeks before it shows up. Oh, there's questions about your kitty's name, Erin. Oh, that's
Oh, it's not letting me. I think
okay.
I'd have to close my Chrome browser and then reopen it. If I re-click okay.
Oh, you're fine.
It's,
how about just maybe we'll do one more, and then thankfully you're coming back. I mean, we've already decided you're coming back to talk about the chumstick and other work. So this clown show can go away, and we can get you back after we have these other Siletzia sessions. And we also want to do some live Q&A. That should work. I can just shut up, and you can see the live questions, can you?
Yes, I pulled, let me see. Let me I brought it over from YouTube, so I should be able to see them now, but I wasn't watching it before.
Sure. Okay.
But let's see.
Let's go right to these questions. Let's just let's get me out of the equation. And if you wouldn't mind, just picking a few of yours. Just pretend this is your show now. I'm going to go away. I'll be back in a bit.
Okay. So I see a question from the device 9. Is the Blue Mountain turbidite made out of eroded Siletzia and then shoved beneath of Siletzia? I really wish I could share my screen and show some of the poster that I presented at GSA, but Blue Mountain unit is still going to be derived probably from continental sources. So when we look at the provenance of it, so the composition of the sandstone grains using sandstone petrography or using detrital zircon geochronology, we can tie that back to sources that are coming from the southern tip of Vancouver Island, the San Juan Islands, and then even east towards the continent. But yes, the Blue Mountain unit then has to be later shoved beneath the reworked and recycled in the accretionary prism before it's brought back up to where it's presently exposed, kind of in that fault wedge. Okay, let's see. Lots of questions. For Kyle Roth, in the cross-section view, as Siletzia rotated clockwise or counterclockwise. So there is a lot of research and recent work that has come out on looking at how much the rotation has occurred on the Olympic Peninsula and when that has begun. So on the whiteboard that Nick was showing, you could see that the Siletzia Basalt and the sedimentary units kind of make this horseshoe shape. And that's kind of called a orocline when it's been folded around like that. And different parts of the Olympic Peninsula have rotated in different directions. So on the northern part of the Olympic Peninsula, it has rotated counterclockwise. So to restore that, we would then have to rotate it back like 30 or 35 to 40 degrees clockwise. The faulting and the rotation is thought to have occurred in the Miocene, but there's some more recent work suggesting it could go back to in the late Eocene too. Let's see. The questions on how long does it take for the turbidites to get pushed under. So Mark Brandon does a lot of research out studying the accretionary prism. So the Olympic core on the Olympic Peninsula is essentially metasedimentary rocks, and those are all the Eocene to the current accretionary prism strata. And his group has done a ton of research on trying to understand how long it takes for those sediments to be recycled into recycled in the Olympic Peninsula and in the accretionary prism. I can't remember the exact timing off the top of my head, but there's definitely a lot of work out there that's looking to understand it. Let's see. What else?
You're doing great. I feel like I'm stranding you now, so we'll try 2 or 3 more.
2 or 3 more questions?
Yeah, if you're up for it.
Did we confirm Siletzia has moved? So that's what my research, my PhD is focusing on currently. So I've done 2 field seasons on the Olympic Peninsula, and then this summer, and hopefully the next summer, we would be going up to southeastern Alaska. So this summer targeting the Samovar Hills, which are in Wrangellia St. Elias National Park. So we'd likely fly into Yakutat and then take a helicopter into the park and do a couple weeks of research there, documenting, very similar to the work that I did on the peninsula, measuring sections, documenting the sedimentary sequences, interpreting depositional environments, and then sampling for detrital zircon geochronology. And then hopefully we find tuffs or other igneous units that we can then sample as well that are either interbedded with those sedimentary sequences that could give us some really precise ages for the sedimentary sequences. So hopefully once we get all that data, the age data from the Olympic Peninsula, we will be able to start actually trying to test whether or not they form together as the same oceanic plateau. Let's see, did Yakutat scrape Vancouver Island? So yeah, the Yakutat terrain is split into kind of 2 pieces. And originally it was thought that the one side of it was, the basement was basalt, and then the other was the Yakutat group, which is essentially Cretaceous metasedimentary sediments. And so how we envision that is that that initial collision of Yakutat and Siletzia to Washington and Vancouver Island area, it hit. And so part of that did get taken with it once it was translated to the north. So that would be part of that Cretaceous accretionary prism strata that's kind of on the bottom of the Yakutat terrain beneath the sedimentary basin units. Let's see.
I'm so excited to hear these answers when I can actually hear them instead of you're singing around right now in my head.
The sandstones.
Yeah.
Oh, so the Blue Mountain unit is the only sedimentary unit that has been thrust as part of the accretionary prism. So it's been kind of recycled through and in the thrust sheets of the accretionary prism. The other sedimentary rocks, which are kind of known in past literature as the peripheral rocks, are not deformed that much. They're not part of the accretionary prism. And so one of the goals is to, if this Blue Mountain unit is younger, which we know it's younger, then how does it fit into the stratigraphic section of the peripheral rock? So if it has this Eocene age, well, we know just based off of fossils and foraminifera that some of the lowermost strata in the peripheral rock should be the same age as that. So if we get these precise ages, we can actually start to think about, is the Blue Mountain unit the oldest unit in that sequence? Is it age equivalent to one of the lowermost units? And we can start to really tease out the stratigraphy for the peripheral rock sequence and then where that Blue Mountain unit would fit in.
So one season in Alaska ought to do it? You never know exactly, but like you have a tentative plan that you can get what you need this coming summer?
Yeah, for Alaska, the Sam River Hills, anytime you're doing backcountry field work, you always treat it like you're never going to go back because it's hard to get back there. It's expensive.
Yeah.
But I think we should have funding for a second field season where then we could hit other areas like the Robinson Mountains. And then we could also kind of jump around in the Katala area. All those areas along the southeastern part of Alaska have the sedimentary sequence that's sitting right on top of Yakutat. So then we could get a really good idea along strike on the Yakutat how depositional environments, provenance, age, all varies.
That was excellent. I'm sure of it. That was excellent. Now, how about this? If you got 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I've got time.
I'm going to hide you in the green room. If you want to close your browser, like restart, try that email link again, see if you can then share your screen. We could do a few more with you showing us your maps. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's gravy now. You've already done an amazing job with these weird circumstances. So does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Well, I'll put you in the green room and then you can kind of get yourself out of here, I guess.
Yeah, I can just close this.
Thank you. Hope to see you again. If I don't, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
All right. Hey, we've got a mudroom in our house, and it's cold, and there's some beer in that mudroom. I am going to go crazy. I still got the frickin' echo, even without my headphones. All right, so I'm just going to, oh, she's back already. And so wait, I can't even talk to you one-on-one without the echo? Yeah, because I can't find the other browser. There's browsers that go away. So Erin's, I'll give you the play-by-play. So thank you for joining us. That might be it today, but Erin's back in the green room, and she's trying to share her maps as a separate, Yeah, I know you don't have echo. That's great, but I do because I'm not a guy who swipes away a certain desktop and has another one because I don't even know how to find those things when they go away. So it looks like, Erin, you're still having, yeah, the sound is off on my laptop. Well, now I can't hear myself. Oh, that's merciful. There's merciful quiet right now. Thank you for that. I can't hear a frickin' thing now. So I can't hear you at all now, Erin, but
Okay.
you're still not able to share the
Oh, I can give it a
screen?
try.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. I got
So,
it.
okay.
I'm gonna include it.
Okay, cool. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, so this is the poster that I gave at DSA, this conference, the most recent one in October. And so now we can take a look at some of the stratigraphic units we were just talking about. So this is a stratigraphic column. And so here's those crescent basalts. And then these peripheral sedimentary units are all of these browns that are on the map here. So the pink would be your Blue Mountain unit. And then this purple would be your lower crescent. The darker purple is the upper crescent. And then all of this is the sedimentary peripheral rocks. And so when we look at this map, we can see that the Blue Mountain unit is mapped as interfingering with some of these lower crescent basalts. And so one of the big takeaways from this field season was to test whether or not these were in fact interfingering with these lower crescent basalts. Because if they are, we already know that the Blue Mountain unit has to be younger, has to be somewhere part of this peripheral rock sequence. And so that would suggest then that if it's interfingering with all of these volcanics, that this phase of volcanism here also has to be younger. And so one of the big takeaways from this field season was that we found that it is indeed interfingering with those lower, what was mapped as the lower crescent basalts, which would then suggest that you constructed Siletzia, your big oceanic plateau. Where Blue Mountain unit fits in, we're going to figure out. This is the lowermost unit, the Aldwell of the peripheral rock. But it means that you must have had this pretty large volume of a younger phase of volcanism. And so how that fits into this whole story of Siletzia and Yakutat's collision and also rifting off Yakutat terrain so it could be translated to the north. What does this phase, the second younger phase of volcanism, represent? And those are some of the questions that I'm asking now to try to figure out where that fits in with this broader tectonic story. And so these are reconstructions, and this is just a first pass at some of the ideas that I was thinking when I threw together this poster in October. And so if you have the Blue Mountain here, so it has to be less than 44.7. You had these turbidites come down over your Yakutat and Siletzia terrain. So this is cross-section view, and this would be the map view. So these continentally derived turbidites. Remember that the Yakutat Siletzia was centered over a spreading ridge. And so we would have them on either side of this spreading ridge that's being subducted. And so the idea of what this younger phase of volcanism could possibly be is that we accrete Siletzia, and then we also have to begin rifting Yakutat off. And so maybe when you go out and you map the Blue Mountain unit where it's interfingering with all these volcanic units, it looks very much like a rift at margin or a rift zone, so or a spreading ridge facies. So the thought is that these could have been these fissure eruptive centers as you're rifting away Yakutat over this spreading ridge that's also being subducted, and that's how we get this younger phase of volcanism that would be interbedded with the lowermost sequence of the peripheral rocks. And then following deposition of the Blue Mountain, if we kind of move to the Aldwell turbidites, you would have to have, this is a very fine-grained unit overall. It's made mostly of siltstones and mudstones. That would suggest you have to have some rapid subsidence following the collision, that you're getting all this finer grade sediment, you're creating space to form this basin. And then at some point we have this really coarse grained lyre formation, which we didn't really get into, but it's this very conglomeratic unit. So conglomerates can't be deposited very far from the source. They don't travel very far. So if we have this ridge that's now currently down to the south, we know that it's sitting up to the north of Vancouver Island now. We have to get this ridge back to the north. So it's possible as this ridge migrated to the north and the Yakutat continued to be translated to the north, that as it passed through this area, you popped up this zone and you were able to deposit all this really coarse grained conglomeratic sandstone material into the basin. But yeah, that's just kind of a first pass at some of my interpretations for what's going on. Hopefully once we get some age data, some of these questions will be able to be answered. Well, I can't hear if you're saying anything, but oh, I still can't hear you.